On October 18th, the world shifted quietly, as if history itself took a deep breath before changing course. A fur-clad land changed hands without a battle, a whale plunged from myth into memory, and a small cat touched the very edge of the stars. It was a day when boundaries blurred, between Earth and space, man and machine, courage and curiosity. From Alaska's frozen frontier sold for a handful of gold to the thick, cloud-wrapped skies of Venus that received humanity's first whisper. October 18th stands as a date woven with wonder. It carries echoes of power and progress, of triumphs written in ink and in starlight. In the next few minutes, we'll journey through 10 remarkable moments that unfolded on this day, each a spark that reshaped our understanding of the world. These are the forgotten turning points, the quiet revolutions. This is October 18th, hidden turning points you never knew. Let's dive in. Number 1. The day the ice changed hands, Alaska's 7.2 million gamble. The date is October 18th, 1867. The world is colder, quieter, untouched. A silver dawn creeps over the Bay of Sitka, Alaska, and two nations hold their breath. On one side of the harbor, rows of Russian soldiers stand rigid, frost glinting on their epaulets. Across from them, American troops, stiff, uncertain, yet proud, clutch their new flag. Between them, the water mirrors a changing world. A single cannon cracks through the silence, echoing off the mountains. At that sound, history shifts. The United States has just taken possession of Alaska. Few watching that ceremony could grasp its meaning. Even fewer believed it mattered. To many, it was just a transfer of ice. But to a visionary named William H. Seward, the Secretary of State, it was the beginning of something extraordinary. The gamble no one wanted. When Seward announced his plan to buy Alaska from the Russian Empire, laughter rolled through Congress like thunder. Newspapers mocked him with headlines such as Seward's Icebox and Johnson's Polar Bear Garden. Caricatures showed him hauling glaciers through Washington's streets. $7 million for snow? Absurd. But Seward had endured worse. He'd survived an assassination attempt the same night President Lincoln was shot. He bore scars on his face and a limp in his step, yet his will remained iron. He believed the Arctic frontier held untold value, strategic, spiritual, and material. He once wrote, "The march of civilization will never halt at the frozen north." That conviction pushed him to strike a midnight deal with the Russian minister Eduard de Stuckel. At 4 a.m. on March 30th, 1867, both men signed the treaty. The price? $7.2 million, about 2 cents an acre. And just like that, an empire sold an expanse twice the size of Texas. Still, when the treaty reached the Senate, outrage erupted. Why should the Union, still healing from the Civil War, waste money on wilderness? One senator joked, "We might as well buy the moon." Yet, by a single vote, the purchase was approved. The ink dried, the ridicule didn't. The ceremony of silence. In Sitka that October morning, the formal transfer began. Russian flags lowered slowly while American cannons roared 21 times. When the stars and stripes rose, the rope tangled halfway, forcing soldiers to climb the pole and untwist it. An omen, some whispered. As the final salute echoed, the Russian troops wept openly. For them, it wasn't just territory, it was home. Their descendants had fished these waters, married into indigenous families, and built lives that would vanish overnight. Yet, amid the ceremony, there was no voice for the Tlingit and other native nations whose ancestors had lived there for millennia. No treaty, no consent, no payment. Their lands were traded like currency, their sovereignty erased by signatures and faraway capitals. History books called it a transaction. For them, it was dispossession. That haunting silence still lingers in Alaska's wind. Hidden riches beneath the snow. At first glance, Seward's critics seemed right. Years passed without profit. Reporters joked that America had bought a giant refrigerator. But time, as always, reveals its irony. In the late 1890s, prospectors struck gold along the Klondike. Thousands surged north in a frenzy that reshaped the American dream. Suddenly, the folly gleamed with fortune. Then came the discovery of oil in Puerto Bay, vast fisheries teeming with salmon, endless timber and mineral veins running like arteries through the mountains. The once mocked purchase transformed into one of the greatest bargains in human history. By the mid-20th century, Alaska supplied resources that powered the American economy. Its pipelines stretched across tundra like metallic rivers, its crude oil-fueled cities far to the south. In economic hindsight, Seward looked less like a fool and more like a prophet. A fortress of ice and strategy. What critics missed was the map. Alaska's position placed the United States within sight of both Russia and Japan, a frozen watchtower over two continents. Those icy outposts proved Seward's foresight. Alaska was not a luxury, but a shield. When the Cold War dawned, radar domes and air bases dotted the landscape, tracking Soviet missiles across the Bering Strait, just 50 miles away. Even now, as melting ice opens new Arctic routes, global powers compete for influence there. The deal mocked in 1867 has become a strategic masterpiece in 2025. The landscape that refuses to be tamed beyond the politics lies a world too vast to belong to any nation. Snow-crowned peaks pierce the clouds. Glaciers groan like living creatures. Grizzlies roam forests of spruce and cedar. At night, the sky erupts in ribbons of emerald light. Few places on Earth remind humanity of its smallness the way Alaska does. Documentarians call it the planet's last frontier. Poets call it a cathedral of silence. Here, every step crunches on the bones of ancient ice, and every gust of wind tells a story older than language. For travelers, Alaska is more than scenery. It's perspective. You realize that the line between beauty and brutality is thin, that survival and serenity share the same space. Perhaps that's why people still feel drawn north, chasing something pure, untouched, almost spiritual. The forgotten check. Here's a twist many textbooks skip. The U.S. paid Russia with a treasury draft, essentially a paper check. It was cashed at a London bank, converted into gold, and sent by ship to St. Petersburg. Somewhere along the way, part of the fortune vanished into the fog of bureaucracy. Rumors persist that corrupt intermediaries skimmed much of it, leaving the Russian treasury shortchanged. So while Alaska enriched America beyond imagination, Russia gained little and later regretted the sale bitterly. Had they kept it, the Soviet Union might have been twice as powerful. But history thrives on what-ifs, and this one still chills with irony. Legacy and celebration today, every October 18th is Alaska Day. In Sitka, locals reenact the ceremony in full uniform. Cannons thunder across the harbor, children wave both flags, and bagpipes march where muskets once fired. It's not only celebration, but reflection. A recognition of courage, error, and vision woven together. Seward's name, once a punchline, adorns highways, cities, and glaciers. His statue in Sitka stands with a gaze fixed northward, as if he still sees tomorrow's promise in the fog. And maybe he does. Because Alaska, more than land, became an idea, the belief that boldness outlives ridicule. Contrast framing, then versus now. Think back to that dawn in 1867, a quiet harbor, two nations, one flag changing hands. Now picture modern Anchorage, glowing with oil wealth, jets streaking overhead, cruise ships gliding through fjords. What was once isolation is now a bridge between continents. What was folly became foresight. That, as the heartbeat of history, the contrast between what people believe in the moment and what time reveals later. Seward understood that the world belongs to those who bet on the unseen, and on October 18th, he proved it. Transition to next story. As the Alaskan wind settles and the cannon smoke clears, another kind of story surfaces, one not of land, but of legend. Because while Alaska joined the Union, another creation was about to join eternity. Across the ocean, in a small London print shop, a thick novel rolled off the press. Its title would puzzle readers, anger critics, and later crown its author with immortality. That book was Moby-Dick, and its release on October 18, 1851, would change the course of literature forever. Number 2. The whale that shaped literature, Moby-Dick's mysterious debut. Picture it. London, October 18, 1851. A gray morning curls fog around the Thames. The smell of ink and seawater hangs in the air. In a cramped print shop on Richmond Street, sheets of freshly pressed pages dry on racks. Their title reads simply, "The Whale." Few notice it. No crowds, no fanfare. Just a man with weary eyes signing the publisher's ledger. Herman Melville. He doesn't know it yet, but this quiet birth will create one of the most powerful myths ever written. A story that, like the ocean itself, will swallow generations of readers whole. A book born of obsession. Melville was no stranger to the sea. In his 20s, he had sailed on whaling ships, sweating under white-hot suns, dodging harpoons, and listening to men curse the indifferent ocean. Those voyages carved salt into his soul. When he sat down years later to write, the sea poured back out of him in waves, yet his publishers expected another light adventure, something like his earlier successes, Typee and Omoo. Instead, Melville delivered a sprawling philosophical storm, part sermon, part poem, part fever dream. It was the tale of a captain consumed by revenge and a whale that became something larger than life. When he mailed the manuscript to London, he titled it The Whale. British editors trimmed passages and sanitized biblical references. Only later in New York would the American edition appear as Moby-Dick, or The Whale. Same book, new title, yet the two versions ensured confusion for decades. The first readers didn't imagine picking up Moby-Dick in 1851 expecting swashbuckling adventure, and instead facing entire chapters on whale anatomy, color symbolism, and the metaphysics of evil. Reviewers were baffled. The London Spectator called it rude and disorderly. The Athenaeum complained it was of indefinite length and ungovernable imagination. Sales were miserable. Only a few hundred copies left the shelves. Melville's reputation sank so fast that even his close friend Nathaniel Hawthorne, to whom the book was dedicated, couldn't rescue him. By 1856, Melville was nearly broke, writing to Hawthorne, "I have written a wicked book and feel spotless as the lamb." The public moved on. The book of the century vanished into obscurity. Rediscovered in the depths. For 70 years, Moby-Dick slept in libraries and dusty attics. Then, in the 1920s, scholars of the so-called Melville Revival stumbled upon it again. In a world scarred by war and searching for meaning, Captain Ahab's monomaniacal pursuit of the white whale suddenly felt prophetic. Readers saw in Ahab the madness of modern ambition, in the whale the face of an indifferent universe. What once seemed chaos now felt like truth. By the mid-20th century, Moby-Dick had risen from failure to masterpiece. Universities taught it, artists painted it, filmmakers adapted it, and Herman Melville, dead, forgotten, buried without fame, was hailed as one of America's greatest novelists. The Whale Beyond the Page. Moby-Dick is more than a story, it's a mirror. Some see religion, a struggle between man and God. Others see capitalism, the endless chase for profit. Still others see nature's revenge on human arrogance. The whale is all of them, and none of them, a symbol as boundless as the sea itself. Consider the opening line, "Call me Ishmael," 3 words that pull us instantly aboard. Ishmael is every wanderer, every survivor. He watches obsession destroy the men around him, yet lives to tell us why. That single voice, lonely, introspective, honest, changed narrative style forever. Modern writers from Faulkner to Toni Morrison owe debts to Melville's daring. His shifting perspectives, his poetic prose, his willingness to let a story fracture into philosophy, all became the DNA of modern literature. The real-world whale behind the myth was a real terror. The Essex, a whaling ship rammed and sunk by a sperm whale in 1820. Survivors drifted for months, resorting to cannibalism. Melville read their account and was haunted. The idea of nature turning hunter on man took root. He fused that true horror with his own experience at sea and his readings of Shakespeare and the Bible. Out came something unique, a book that sounded like a sermon delivered by a sailor to the stars. A contrast of silence and thunder. Think of it this way. On one October 18th, America was claiming frozen land in Alaska. On another, across the Atlantic, a writer was claiming the infinite ocean for literature. One event reshaped geography, the other reshaped imagination. That contrast, land versus sea, empire versus soul, is why this day in history feels almost fated. While governments traded territory, Melville traded comfort for truth. Seward bought ice. Melville dove into fire. Both were mocked. Both were vindicated long after their deaths. Cinematic echoes over the decades, Moby-Dick refused to stay confined to pages. In 1956, John Huston directed the iconic film starring Gregory Peck as Ahab, his booming voice calling, "From hell's heart, I stab at thee." The scene captured the book's fever, man versus the unknowable. Then came reinterpretations, Star Trek II. The Wrath of Khan borrows Ahab's rage. Jaws mirrors the obsessive hunt. Even modern thrillers echo his curse. Pop culture keeps harpooning the same question. What happens when obsession becomes identity? The language that outlived the ship, Melville's language still astonishes. He called the ocean the ungraspable phantom of life. He described the whale's skin as a parchment covered with hieroglyphic marks. Each sentence feels carved, not written, and yet his genius almost destroyed him. Publishers wanted simplicity. Melville gave them symphonies. He wasn't ahead of his time. He was from another dimension entirely. Today, Moby-Dick sells in dozens of languages, its words engraved on monuments, quoted in songs, whispered by professors who still struggle to explain it. It has become less a book than a pilgrimage. Melville's final years. After Moby-Dick flopped, Melville kept writing. Pierre, Israel Potter, Billy Budd, but none regained the world's attention. By the 1880s, he was working quietly as a customs inspector in New York, earning $2 a day. Neighbors had no idea the gray-bearded man on the stoop had once mapped the human soul in ink. When he died in 1891, newspapers misspelled his name. His tombstone simply reads, Herman Melville, author and sailor. He never knew he'd outlive them all. The whale in the modern world. In our age of digital noise and instant gratification, Moby-Dick still whispers relevance. It warns of chasing meaning so furiously that we destroy ourselves. It celebrates curiosity while condemning obsession. It asks, what is the cost of knowledge? Students still wrestle with its density. Filmmakers still mine its imagery. In a way, Melville predicted the 21st century, an ocean of data, each of us harpooning our own white whale. Success, fame, perfection. Close your eyes and imagine Ahab standing on the quarterdeck, rain slicing his face, the harpoon glinting. He's shouting to the heavens, I'd strike the sun if it insulted me. That's not madness. That's humanity laid bare, our brilliance and our blindness colliding in one roar. And when the whale finally surfaces, massive, silent, unknowable, it's not just a beast. It's every mystery we'll never conquer. That's why Moby-Dick endures, because it isn't about a whale. It's about us. As the last page closes and the sea calms, we drift from the boundless ocean to another frontier, one built not of waves, but of airwaves. Because decades later, on another October 18th, a new voice would rise, clear, confident, and destined to echo across the globe. It was 1922, and the BBC was born. Number 3, The Voice of a Nation, The Birth of the BBC, 1922. Picture Britain in 1922. Steam whistles still echo from the rail yards, horse carts clatter beside new motor cars, and the air hums with a strange invention called radio. People huddle around homemade receivers, boxes of wires, valves, and hope. straining to catch faint crackles of speech from across town. The world is on the edge of something unseen yet deeply human, the power to speak to millions without ever leaving a room. And on October 18, 1922, that whisper became a roar. The British Broadcasting Company was officially formed, the ancestor of the BBC we know today. The day voices took flight. It began not with grand speeches or government decrees, but with a handful of engineers and dreamers. 6 wireless manufacturers, including Marconi, pooled their resources to create a national broadcasting service. At the time, radio was still a curiosity. The government wasn't sure if it was science or sorcery. Newspapers feared it would kill print. Musicians thought it might ruin live performance forever. But when the BBC sent out its first official broadcast just weeks later, something magical happened. Britain listened together. Farmers in Yorkshire, bankers in London, miners in Wales, all hearing the same human voice at once. It was unity through airwaves, silence before sound. Before that moment, national communication was painfully slow. News traveled by telegraph or print. Rumors spread faster than truth. The world was connected by empire, yet isolated by distance. The BBC shattered that silence. Suddenly, invisible threads wove people together through nothing but sound. One voice could inform, comfort, or inspire an entire nation. During storms, strikes, or celebrations, Britons tuned in not just for news, but for belonging. That was the birth of something more than technology. It was a new social heartbeat. Crackles and courage. Imagine the first BBC studio. Not the high-tech newsroom we see today, but a small room lined with Hessian fabric to absorb echo. A microphone the size of a pineapple hangs from the ceiling. A nervous announcer, Arthur Burrows, clears his throat and speaks into history. This is 2LO, London, calling the British Isles. The transmission reaches barely a few hundred people, but it feels monumental. Within months, thousands more build radios. Within a year, the BBC's broadcasts stretch from Aberdeen to Plymouth. And within a decade, the BBC becomes a national conscience, a voice that would carry Britain through wars, coronations, and the birth of television. A battle for trust, from entertainment to integrity. At first, many saw radio as mere novelty, music, comedy sketches, weather reports, all fine diversions. But the BBC's founder, John Reith, had grander ideas. He believed broadcasting carried moral weight. To Reith, the mission wasn't to entertain, but to educate, inform, and uplift. His motto, "Nation shall speak peace unto nation," turned a gadget into an instrument of civilization. Of course, not everyone agreed. Newspapers accused the BBC of censorship. Politicians feared its influence. Yet Reith held his ground, insisting that truth must be spoken clearly and independently, even when inconvenient. That insistence on impartiality became the BBC's backbone, the empire's echo versus the people's voice. Here's the irony. Britain's empire was shrinking, but its voice was growing. While colonies fought for freedom, the BBC transmitted British ideals, democracy, debate, literature, across the world. Its broadcasts reached India, Africa, Australia, and beyond. For some, it was cultural domination. For others, inspiration. But for millions, it was the first time hearing Shakespeare, symphonies, or simple bedtime stories through the air. The BBC blurred class and distance. A coal miner could listen to the King's Christmas message from his kitchen. A schoolgirl in Manchester could learn about galaxies from professors she'd never meet. That's not just communication. That's social alchemy. Courage over the airwaves. Then came the darkest test, World War II. In the 1940s, when bombs rained over London, it wasn't generals or politicians who kept morale alive. It was voices in the night. The BBC became a lifeline. Winston Churchill's defiant broadcasts. Vera Lynn's "We'll meet again," updates from the front. Even coded messages to resistance fighters in occupied Europe. The BBC became both sword and shield, truth against tyranny. And across enemy lines, people risked their lives tuning in. Nazi Germany jammed frequencies, Yet listeners whispered, "Keep the BBC on. It tells the truth." That trust became sacred. The science of connection behind every broadcast were unsung geniuses. Engineers soldering circuits, women operating switchboards, sound technicians improvising equipment from spare parts. They weren't chasing fame, they were building connection. Think of it, invisible energy waves bouncing off the ionosphere, carrying laughter, tragedy, and truth. Physics turned into poetry. And all of it traces back to that October 18th day, a legal document that quietly said, "Let S make this company." The British Broadcasting Company, destined to become a corporation, destined to reshape culture forever. Cultural renaissance, radio to television. By the 1950s, radio gave way to television. Yet the BBC adapted, mastering the new medium with grace. It brought the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II to living rooms worldwide, uniting millions in shared awe. It introduced children's programs, nature documentaries, and eventually color TV. Think of Planet Earth, that ethereal narration by David Attenborough tracing the wonders of nature. That's the same BBC born in a dusty office in 1922. From static to satellites, a century-long evolution that began with a handful of dreamers. Contrast framing. Then and now. In 1922, a BBC broadcast might reach a few hundred listeners. In 2025, a single clip can reach hundreds of millions in seconds. Yet the essence is unchanged. Humans telling stories to other humans. That's the heart of broadcasting. Presence without proximity. The BBC didn't invent that. It rediscovered something ancient. The campfire circle, the bard, the storyteller. Technology simply scaled it. The voice that never fades. As night falls on that October 18th, 1922, somewhere in London, a technician switches off the transmitter. The faint hum fades. Silence returns. No fireworks, no applause. Just a few engineers sharing tea, unaware they've just changed human consciousness. A century later, we still chase that magic. Creators uploading videos, podcasters recording in bedrooms, all seeking that same moment of connection. So next time you hear a broadcast, or even this YouTube video, remember, it all began on this day, when the world learned to listen. Number 4, a new flag in the Caribbean. The U.S. takes Puerto Rico, 1898. The morning of October 18, 1898, dawned heavy with tropical humidity over San Juan. Palm fronds swayed in the sea breeze, cannon sat silent at the harbor walls, and Spanish soldiers packed their gear under the weary Caribbean sun. After 4 centuries under Spain's crimson banner, Puerto Rico was about to wake beneath a different flag. That day, American troops marched into the city and hoisted the stars and stripes above La Fortaleza. Bands played the Star-Spangled Banner. Civilians watched in uneasy silence. Some cheered for what they hoped was a new beginning. Others bowed their heads, feeling history slip through their fingers. The United States had just taken possession of Puerto Rico, not through negotiation, but as the spoils of the Spanish-American War. The war that lasted a season. The conflict between the U.S. and Spain lasted barely 4 months in 1898, but it remade empires. The spark? A mysterious explosion aboard the battleship USS Maine in Havana Harbor. Newspapers screamed for vengeance. Remember the Maine! To hell with Spain. Behind the outrage was a nation flexing new muscles. America had industrial power, ambition, and a hunger to project both overseas. Cuba, the Philippines, Guam, and Puerto Rico were Spain's remaining jewels, and Washington had set its sights on them. When the guns fell silent, the Treaty of Paris transferred Puerto Rico from Spain to the U.S. Official control began on October 18, 1898. From empire's sunset to empire's dawn. Imagine the symbolism. Spain's empire, once so vast it claimed to own the sunset itself, was dimming. The United States, barely a century old, was rising to global prominence. Puerto Rico became the bridge between these two worlds. An island caught between fading imperial pride and fresh-minted American ambition. To Washington, it was a strategic coaling station, a naval foothold guarding the future Panama Canal. To Puerto Ricans, it was uncertainty. Would this new empire treat them as partners or subjects? Drama in silence. Eyewitnesses described that October morning with tension thick enough to taste. Spanish troops stood in formation as U.S. soldiers marched in. Governor Macias delivered a brief farewell. Then quietly, the Spanish flag descended the mast. For a few heartbeats, the pole stood bare against the blazing sky. Then the American flag climbed upward, rustling in the wind, a sound like new authority taking root. Cannons boomed in salute. The crowd erupted in conflicting emotions: cheers, tears, stunned silence. At that moment, Puerto Rico ceased to be Spain's rich port and became America's unincorporated territory. Freedom promised, identity questioned. U.S. officials spoke the language of liberation. They promised modern schools, sanitation, roads, and opportunity. And indeed, progress came, but so did paternalism. Puerto Ricans weren't granted U.S. citizenship until 1917. They couldn't vote for president, and Congress ruled them from afar. Their currency changed, their education system was anglicized, their laws rewritten. For many islanders, the stars and stripes symbolized both promise and paradox, the freedom of modernization, shadowed by the loss of self-governance. That contrast, liberation versus limitation, would shape Puerto Rico's identity for the next century. The island speaks back. Even under colonial structures, Puerto Ricans forged their own cultural renaissance. Musicians blended Spanish rhythms with African beats. Poets wrote about belonging and exile. Political leaders debated independence, statehood, and autonomy. Figures like Luis Muñoz Marin emerged, voices who sought to define Puerto Rico on its own terms. The island's literature, art, and music pulsed with that duality. American citizens with Caribbean souls. Every October 18th since 1898 carries that echo. Celebration for some, mourning for others. Guns to jazz. It's almost poetic how history turns weapons into instruments. The same decade that saw gunboats in San Juan also saw jazz bloom in New Orleans. One empire ended with drums of war. Another began with drums of music. Puerto Rico would become part of that rhythm. Its musicians, from Rafael Hernandez to Tito Puente, infused American sound with island fire. The culture that Spain and the U.S. had fought over would, in time, enrich both. Wartime loyalty and modern paradox. When World War I erupted, thousands of Puerto Ricans served in the U.S. Army, even before they had full rights. During World War II, their sons joined again. Their courage was unquestionable. Yet after every conflict, the question remained: what exactly is Puerto Rico's place? Territory, colony, partner, family? To this day, islanders vote in referendums on statehood, independence, or commonwealth, and the answers are never simple. Every option carries centuries of contradiction born on that October morning in 1898. Voices of the street. Close your eyes and hear it. The soundscape of San Juan that day. Church bells, marching boots, vendors whispering prayers, old men remembering Spain's golden years, children pointing at the strange new flag, a mother holding her baby, wondering which anthem that child will sing. History often records dates and treaties, but not the heartbeat beneath them. October 18th, 1898 was more than a transfer of territory. It was the collision of worlds lived through ordinary lives. Long shadows, living stories. Today, Puerto Rico stands at the crossroads of identity and resilience. It's a U.S. territory that competes in the Olympics under its own flag. It uses the U.S. dollar yet dances to its own rhythm. It votes in primaries but not in presidential elections. The struggle between belonging and independence, progress and pride, is ongoing. A century-long dialogue that began the moment one flag replaced another. Transition hook to next section. And here's the irony of history's rhythm. While empires traded islands, another frontier was opening, not on Earth, but far beyond. Fast forward 69 years to another October 18th, when humanity dared to touch another planet's sky. That's where we go next. Number 5. Venera 4 and the First Touch of Venus, 1967. October 18, 1967. the day humanity touched another world. October 18, 1967. High above the Earth's blue horizon, a small metal sphere the size of a coffee table races silently through the dark. Its destination? Not the moon, not Mars, but a world so mysterious, so blindingly bright, that for centuries it had only been called the Morning Star. That day, the Soviet probe Venera 4 pierced the thick, toxic clouds of Venus, and for the first time in human history, a machine built by our hands touched another planet's atmosphere and sent back data from an alien world. While the United States was celebrating the triumphs of Apollo missions around the moon, the Soviet Union quietly achieved something equally profound. A mission that didn't just orbit or observe, but reached out and felt another planet for the very first time. The space race heats. Up the 1960s were a decade of rivalry written in rocket fire. Every launch, every photograph from orbit, every crash landing on a distant surface was another line in the Cold War's most poetic battlefield, space exploration. The Americans had already captured the world's imagination with Gemini flights and their bold plans to land a man on the moon. But the Soviets, ever the masters of surprises, turned their eyes elsewhere, toward a planet cloaked in brilliant clouds and mystery. Venus, to the naked eye, was stunning, a soft golden light that followed the sunrise and trailed the sunset. But beneath those serene clouds, scientists suspected something truly alien. A runaway greenhouse world, perhaps boiling hot, perhaps crushing in pressure, or maybe, just maybe, another Earth hiding under its veil. The world wanted answers, and the Soviet Union was determined to get them first. The little probe that could. Launched on June 12, 1967, Venera 4 was no ordinary spacecraft. Standing just under 1 meter in diameter, it looked like a metallic sphere wrapped in petals. Inside were sensors, thermometers, and radio transmitters, carefully packed like the organs of a living being. Its mission was clear but unprecedented. Enter Venus's atmosphere, measure temperature, pressure, and chemical composition, and transmit data in real time before it was crushed or melted by the unknown forces below. It was an audacious dream. Venus was 100 times hotter and denser than Earth, but no one knew that yet. For Soviet engineers, it was like firing a dart into fog, hoping it would survive the flames of hell. October 18, 1967, the descent begins. As Venera 4 neared Venus, engineers at Mission Control in Baikonur watched their monitors with silent tension. Then, at 4:34 p.m. Moscow time, the signal came, faint but steady. The probe had separated from its carrier module and was entering the Venusian atmosphere. Down it went, slicing through 92 kilometers of carbon dioxide clouds, where sunlight barely reached the surface. Temperatures soared past 200 degrees C within minutes, and the pressure outside grew. First like a deep ocean dive, then like the weight of a mountain. For 93 minutes, Venera 4 transmitted data, information no human had ever received from another planet's atmosphere. The readings stunned scientists. The temperature was over 500 degrees, hot enough to melt lead. The pressure was more than 90 times that of Earth's. And the air? Almost pure carbon dioxide, laced with sulfuric acid. The dream of a second Earth was gone in an instant. Venus wasn't a twin. It was a fiery inferno, an uninhabitable planet trapped in its own greenhouse nightmare. In the moment of silence. Eventually, the signal faded. No one knew exactly when Venera 4 was crushed. Some believed it survived longer than expected, descending deep into the thick atmosphere before its metal shell gave way. But it didn't matter. The mission was already a success, not because it landed safely, but because it proved that humanity could touch another world and hear back from it, even for a few minutes. This was a milestone of cosmic courage, a testament to the idea that exploration isn't just about reaching the stars, but daring to step into the unknown, knowing you might not return. Redefining the possible. The data from Venera 4 didn't just change how we saw Venus, it rewrote planetary science. For decades, textbooks had imagined Venus as Earth's twin, a world of rain, jungles, and oceans hidden under clouds. But the Soviet probe revealed the shocking truth. Venus was a furnace, a cautionary tale about what happens when a planet's atmosphere spirals out of control. It also gave birth to new scientific curiosity about Earth's own climate, about greenhouse gases, and about the delicate balance that keeps our world alive. For the Soviets, it was a moment of national pride. They had beaten the Americans once again, not by planting a flag, but by achieving something no one else had: direct interplanetary contact. And for the world, it was a quiet, humbling reminder. Even the most beautiful lights in the sky can hide terrifying truths. A planet of dreams, a planet of fire. Let's pause for a moment. Imagine standing on the surface of Venus, if you could. Above you, no blue sky, no stars, no sunlight. Just orange clouds swirling in acid mist. The air around you feels like molten metal. The pressure would crush your body flat in seconds. And the temperature? Over 470 degrees, hotter than any kitchen oven on Earth. Now think about Earth, the soft air, the oceans, the whisper of wind. The contrast is staggering. In a way, Venera 4 didn't just teach us about Venus. It reminded us how fragile and miraculous our own world is. Seeds of future exploration. The mission's success inspired a new wave of exploration. The Soviets followed with Venera 5, 6, 7, each one more advanced, more daring. Venera 7, launched 3 years later, became the first spacecraft to transmit data from the surface of another planet. And decades later, NASA's Magellan would map Venus in detail, confirming what Venera 4 first hinted. A surface of volcanoes, mountains, and plains, all baked beneath an unyielding sky. But the credit for opening that door, for the first whisper from beneath the clouds, belongs to Venera 4. A touch that changed how we see the cosmos. On October 18, 1967, humanity learned something extraordinary. That day wasn't just about machines and science. It was about the spirit of exploration, about the people who looked up at the stars and decided to reach out, no matter how impossible it seemed. Venera 4 didn't survive its journey, but it didn't have to. Its signal, brief, crackling, and distant, echoed through history as proof that our reach had extended beyond Earth. From that moment on, we were no longer just earthbound beings gazing at the heavens. We had touched another world, and the universe for the first time had touched back. Number 6. Bob Beamon's Leap of the Century, 1968. October 18, 1968. The air in Mexico City was thin, so thin that athletes gasped for breath after every sprint. But in that rarefied air, one man was about to do something that would take the breath away from the entire world. A young American long jumper named Bob Beamon walked to the runway. 22 years old, unknown to most, nervous but electric with purpose. Seconds later, he would launch himself into history, flying farther than any human ever had. His jump wasn't just a record. It was a revolution, so astonishing that one official collapsed to his knees when he saw the measurement. This is the story of the jump that redefined human limits, the day gravity itself seemed to pause. Mexico City, 1968, the world on edge. The 1968 Olympics were no ordinary games. They were held in Mexico City, perched more than 7,000 feet above sea level, where oxygen was scarce but expectations soared. It was a time of global turbulence, protests, political unrest, the Cold War. But inside that stadium, for a few fleeting moments, the world forgot its divisions. The focus shifted to a single stretch of sand, a single takeoff board, and a single man ready to make history. Bob Beamon wasn't a favorite to win. The spotlight was on his American teammate Ralph Boston, a seasoned Olympian and world record holder. Beamon, on the other hand, had nearly missed qualifying after fouling on his first 2 jumps in the preliminaries. But when it mattered most, the quiet kid from New York stepped onto the track and turned a leap into legend. A moment suspended in time. It's late afternoon. Beamon begins his approach. 20 long, powerful strides down the runway. His feet slap the red surface with rhythmic certainty. The crowd falls silent. Then, he hits the board perfectly. Every muscle in his body fires like a coiled spring released. His arms sweep forward, his head lifts, and suddenly he's flying. The jump seems endless. He soars through the dry, thin air, longer than the mind can register, before crashing into the sand more than 8.9 meters away. For a heartbeat, no one moves. The officials are stunned. The measuring device, built to read up to 8.60 meters, can't even record the distance. Bob Beamon has just shattered the world record by nearly 2 feet, an improvement so massive it is almost unimaginable in elite athletics. When the measurement finally comes, 890 meters, 29 feet 212 inches, the crowd erupts. Gasps turn into roars. Teammates rush forward, eyes wide in disbelief. Beamon himself stands frozen. Then, when he realizes what he's done, his legs give out. He falls to the ground, overcome by emotion. His coach, Ralph Boston, has to help him up. The moment is pure human magic, unplanned, unfiltered, unforgettable. Before and after the leap before Beamon's jump, the men's long jump record had been broken incrementally, inch by inch, over decades. In 1935, Jesse Owens had leapt 8.13 meters, a record that lasted 25 years. By 1968, the mark stood at 835 meters, shared by Boston and Igor Ter-Ovanesyan. Then Beamon obliterated it, leaping an impossible 55 centimeters farther in a single jump. It was as if someone had skipped a generation of evolution in one afternoon. Athletes, coaches, even physicists struggled to understand it. How could one man leap so far beyond what science said was possible? The answer lay partly in physics and partly in heart. Thin air and perfect form. Mexico City's altitude meant thinner air, offering less resistance. That helped fast sprinters and long jumpers alike. But altitude alone couldn't explain Beamon's miracle. He had achieved something biomechanically extraordinary, a perfect takeoff angle of about 22 degrees, peak speed, and explosive force at just the right millisecond. Every factor aligned: body position, stride rhythm, wind assistance, just within legal limits, and raw adrenaline. Experts later calculated that even under ideal conditions, Beamon's leap exceeded what was then considered the theoretical maximum for human potential. He didn't just beat the record, he redefined what humanly possible meant. The shock of greatness. Beamon's reaction is one of the most human moments in Olympic history. He doesn't pump his fists or boast. Instead, he collapses, knees buckling, face in hands, overcome by something beyond words. Later, reporters would call it a Beamon shock, not just for him, but for everyone watching. Even his competitors applauded. Ter-Ovanesyan, the Soviet jumper he'd dethroned, reportedly smiled and said, "It's not a jump, it's a flight." More than a record. What happened that day transcended sport. Beamon's leap became a metaphor for progress, for freedom, for breaking barriers that the world said couldn't be broken. In the tense atmosphere of the late 1960s, when civil rights struggles and political protests filled the air, his jump symbolized something deeper, the idea that limits are only temporary. His story inspired poets, artists, and even philosophers. One sports writer described it as the moment man learned he could fly without wings. For years, children across the world ran across schoolyards yelling, "I'm Beamon," before leaping into the sand. The man behind the myth. After that historic day, Beamon's career took a different turn. He would never again match that distance, but he didn't need to. His name was already immortal. He went on to study sociology, becoming a motivational speaker and advocate for youth empowerment. The jump had given him a platform, and he used it to inspire others to take leaps of their own, in life, education, and ambition. For Beamon, the legacy wasn't just about distance, it was about possibility. Standing the test of time. Beamon's world record stood for 23 years, untouched until 1991, when American jumper Mike Powell finally broke it by a mere 5 centimeters, 8.95 meters in Tokyo, another electrifying duel with Carl Lewis. But even today, decades later, Beamon's mark remains the Olympic record, untouched since 1968. His name lives in the dictionary, Beamon-esque, meaning a performance so far beyond expectation that it feels almost superhuman. No other athlete's name carries quite the same meaning. The leap beyond gravity. Think of it this way: when Bob Beamon leapt, He didn't just defy gravity, he defied expectation. He was a young man from rough beginnings in South Jamaica, Queens, a kid who grew up dodging challenges far greater than hurdles. Yet in one instant, he rose above them all, and for a few seconds, made the impossible real. That's what makes this story timeless. It's not just about athleticism, it's about the human spirit. The drive to leap higher, run faster, dream bigger than logic allows. The flight that never landed. As Beamon walked away from the pit that day, the crowd still chanting his name, he didn't know that his jump would echo through generations. He didn't just set a record. He expanded the boundaries of what humanity believed it could do. And maybe that's the real magic of October 18th, 1968. Not the numbers or medals, but the feeling that for one unforgettable moment, a man took flight and never truly came down. The mark was 890 meters, but the leap? It was infinite. Number 7. Félicette, the first cat in space, 1963. The forgotten feline who reached the stars. In October 1963, while the world was mesmerized by rockets, rivalry, and the race to the moon, a tiny, unassuming stray cat from the streets of Paris was quietly prepared for a journey beyond imagination. Her name was Félicette, though she didn't have one at first. To the scientists who selected her, she was known only as C-151. But on one historic day, October 18, 1963, she would do something no other feline has ever done. She would travel to space and return safely to Earth. This is her story, a tale of science, courage, and bittersweet triumph, long hidden beneath the louder echoes of the space race. The space race in its golden age. It was the early 1960s. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a cosmic duel, astronauts and cosmonauts competing for glory, rockets roaring toward the unknown. Animals were their first test pilots. Before humans ventured into orbit, dogs, monkeys, and even fruit flies blazed the trail. But there was another nation quietly determined to make its mark: France. While the superpowers aimed for the moon, France AS Centre d'Enseignement et de Recherche de Médecine Aéronautique, CERMA, wanted to study how living creatures reacted to space travel. Their focus wasn't prestige, it was pure science. A quest to understand how the body and brain responded to zero gravity, and for this mission, they needed an animal small enough to fit inside a capsule, calm under stress, and agile enough to endure tests. They chose a cat. From streets to spacecraft, 15 stray cats were brought to the lab from the streets of Paris. Each underwent weeks of medical exams, behavior studies, and conditioning. Scientists tested their reflexes, adaptability, and tolerance to confined environments. Electrodes were implanted to monitor brain activity. The cats were trained to sit calmly inside small capsules, their movements restricted, their heartbeats and neural responses carefully tracked. Among them, C-151 stood out. She was small, resilient, and remarkably calm, unflappable even under flashing lights and loud noises. Researchers noticed she responded predictably to stimuli, an essential trait for controlled experiments. And so, C-151 was chosen for France's maiden biological space mission. Only later, as the mission became public, would she be given her name, Félicette, a playful nod to Félix the cat, the popular cartoon character. October 18, 1963, the launch site was located in Hammaguir, Algeria, then a French testing ground. At 8:09 a.m., the countdown began. Inside the capsule, Félicette was strapped into her seat, her sensors in place, heart rate steady, pupils wide. Scientists monitored her vital signs one last time. The engines ignited, a burst of fire and thunder, and in seconds, the rocket pierced the desert sky. For 13 minutes, Félicette traveled where no cat had gone before. She reached an altitude of 156 kilometers, experiencing several minutes of weightlessness before the capsule descended back to Earth by parachute. Throughout the flight, her brain and heart data streamed down to Earth, giving scientists unprecedented insight into how a mammal's body functioned in microgravity. And then, the most miraculous part, she survived. The capsule landed safely in the desert, retrieved by a team of researchers who raced across the sand to reach her. Félicette was alive, alert, and calm. It was a triumph.
triumph versus tragedy. But as with many pioneering stories, Félicette's journey carried a shadow.
Her mission was a scientific success, but also a moral debate. Weeks later, researchers decided to euthanize her to study the effects of space travel on her brain and nervous system. The decision, while consistent with the standards of the 1960s, feels heartbreaking today. She had done everything asked of her, completed the mission perfectly, and her sacrifice remained largely forgotten. While names like Laika, the Soviet dog who perished in orbit, became symbols of heroism, Félicette's name faded into obscurity. For decades, even her contribution was attributed incorrectly. Many people thought the French had sent a male cat named Félix. The truth of Félicette disappeared into the footnotes of history. The internet era brings her back fast forward half a century. In 2017, a British advertising executive named Matthew Serge Guy stumbled upon Félicette's forgotten story. Shocked that the only cat ever sent to space had no recognition, he launched a Kickstarter campaign to honor her legacy. The campaign's message was simple: Félicette deserves a memorial. Within weeks, supporters from around the world, scientists, space enthusiasts, cat lovers, funded the project. In 2019, at France's International Space University in Strasbourg, a bronze statue of Félicette was unveiled, a sleek, proud cat gazing up at the stars. Finally, the little stray who once looked up at the Parisian night sky had her place among the stars she detouched. Scientific impact emotion aside, Félicette's mission was pioneering. The data she provided helped researchers understand the effects of weightlessness and atmospheric re-entry on mammalian neurology. It informed later studies on human spaceflight, particularly how the brain manages balance, blood flow, and neural signals in low-gravity conditions. Without that foundation, our understanding of astronaut physiology, even the modern training of astronauts on the International Space Station, might look very different. Félicette's flight was short but scientifically monumental. A small life, a giant legacy. Félicette's journey is more than a tale of science. It's a symbol of how the smallest creatures can play extraordinary roles in shaping human history. She wasn't bred for fame, trained for glory, or celebrated by the media. She was an ordinary stray, transformed into an explorer. There's something beautifully ironic about it. While humanity reached for the stars, it was a humble cat who reminded us of the fragility of life in the pursuit of progress. Her eyes, wide and curious, became the reflection of human wonder itself. Forgotten hero to timeless icon Laika died a hero. Ham the chimp returned a celebrity. Félicette? She returned quietly, without headlines, parades, or medals. But history, as it often does, found its way back to her. Today, she is seen as a symbol of ethical reflection, a reminder that exploration must carry compassion alongside ambition. Her name now appears in documentaries, children's books, and even space-themed art installations. In Paris cafes, you'll find sketches of her tiny capsule orbiting beside stars and moons, a poetic tribute to the cat who once touched the cosmos. The cat among the stars. Imagine it. A stray cat once prowling alleys under flickering street lamps, later gazing down upon Earth from the edge of space. Her story bridges science and soul, proof that greatness doesn't always wear a spacesuit or hold a flag. Sometimes it purrs softly behind the glass of a tiny capsule. Félicette didn't know she was making history, but on October 18, 1963, she reminded the world that exploration belongs not just to the powerful, but to the curious, in every form life takes. For one brief moment, a cat touched the stars, and in doing so, taught us what it means to be human. Number 8. The birth of the portable age, the transistor radio revolution, 1954. Picture this. It's October 18, 1954. A small plastic box, no larger than your palm, hums to life with the sound of distant music. No tubes, no heavy batteries, just a sleek device that could fit in your pocket. And for the first time in history, you could take the world's music with you. The crowd doesn't realize it yet, but that little box will change how humanity experiences sound forever. This was the Regency TR-1, the world's first commercial transistor radio. a joint creation between Texas Instruments and Industrial Development Engineering Associates, IDEA. And it wasn't just a gadget, it was a spark, the beginning of the portable electronics revolution that would eventually lead to Walkmans, iPods, and even the smartphone in your hand today. A new sound for a new world. The early 1950s were a time of optimism and innovation. World War II was behind, televisions were entering homes, and America was falling in love with the promise of technology. Yet, the radio, the dominant medium of entertainment and news, was still a bulky, living room affair. You'd find it standing proudly in the corner, humming the evening broadcasts for the family to gather around. Radios were powered by vacuum tubes, fragile, power-hungry, and large. They defined the sound of the first half of the 20th century. But engineers at Texas Instruments, a company then known more for defense electronics than consumer gadgets, had a vision. They wanted to miniaturize sound, to take the warmth and wonder of radio waves and make them portable. Their secret weapon? The transistor, a tiny silicon component that could replace the bulky vacuum tube. It had been invented just 7 years earlier, in 1947, at Bell Labs. But no one had yet turned it into something the everyday consumer could hold and use. The partnership that made history Texas Instruments needed someone to bring their idea to life. A company that understood design, marketing, and consumer appeal. That's when they teamed up with IDEA, a small Indianapolis-based firm that specialized in consumer product design. Together, they spent months experimenting with circuits, casing, and power sources. What emerged was a small rectangular radio with 4 transistors inside, sleek, colorful, and priced at $49.95, equivalent to about $550 today. It came in shades of mandarin red, cloud gray, and lemon yellow, a bold departure from the heavy wooden boxes of the past. When the Regency TR-1 hit the shelves on October 18, 1954, it wasn't just another electronic device. It was freedom in plastic form. A curiosity, then a craze. At first, consumers weren't quite sure what to make of it. The sound quality wasn't as rich as the home radio. It had a small speaker, limited range, and was powered by a 22.5-volt battery that drained faster than people expected. But teenagers didn't care. They could finally listen to their music, wherever they wanted. In an age when youth culture was beginning to take shape, with rock and roll, soda fountains, and drive-in cinemas, the transistor radio became an instant symbol of rebellion and independence. Imagine a teenager sitting on a park bench, transistor radio in hand, listening to Elvis Presley or Chuck Berry, away from the family's living room authority. It was more than sound, it was identity. The birth of portable culture. Before 1954, technology was stationary. Radios sat on furniture, telephones hung on walls. Even music was confined to record players that demanded electricity and space. The TR-1 shattered that pattern. For the first time, people could carry communication and entertainment wherever they went. This wasn't just a technical leap. It was a cultural awakening. Portable radios soon became status symbols. They appeared on beaches, in cars, at construction sites, and under pillows at night. By the late 1950s, millions of units were sold worldwide, especially after Sony, a small Japanese startup, entered the scene with improved versions. From static to streaming now, pause for a second. Think about it. From the TR-1 in 1954 to the iPhone in your pocket today. Both began with the same human desire, to make information and entertainment personal. The TR-1 let you carry the radio waves of the world. Your smartphone lets you carry the entire world. That's the contrast that makes the TR-1 such a historic invention. It wasn't just about shrinking electronics. It was about reshaping human behavior. Before it, we waited for news. After it, we chased it. Before it, music filled rooms. After it, it filled lives. The transistor radio taught us to expect mobility, instant access, and personal choice. Ideas that define every modern device. Engineering a revolution. Technically, the TR-1 was an elegant innovation. Inside its small case were just 4 germanium transistors. One for oscillation, one for frequency conversion, one for detection, and one for amplification. This simple architecture replaced what would have required several bulky vacuum tubes. The innovation drastically reduced heat, power usage, and size, paving the way for a generation of miniaturized electronics. Interestingly, the TR-1 wasn't a financial blockbuster. It sold about 150,000 units in its first year, respectable, but not massive. Yet its symbolic impact was enormous. Texas Instruments didn't just make money, they made history. Their success proved the commercial viability of transistor-based consumer electronics, which encouraged global industries to invest in transistors and, later, integrated circuits. Without that first spark, we might never have seen the microchip, the personal computer, or the smartphone revolution. When the world started to shrink by the early 1960s, transistor radios had become as common as wristwatches. They were everywhere, from African villages tuning into the BBC to American kids listening to baseball games under the covers. These radios connected humanity in a way that was previously impossible. They brought news, music, and voices to the most remote corners of the world, shaping opinions, inspiring revolutions, and bridging cultures. The transistor radio was the first global gadget. It didn't just transmit sound, it transmitted freedom. Small box, big change. Ask anyone who grew up in the 1950s or 60s, and you'll hear the same nostalgia. The crackle of a small speaker, the thrill of twisting the tuning knob, and the joy of hearing your favorite song come alive in a device that felt like magic. That emotional connection between human and technology is what makes the transistor radio unforgettable. It wasn't about the specs, it was about the experience. Just like today, when we put on headphones or scroll through playlists, the TR-1 reminded humanity that technology could be personal, not just functional. The portable age begins. When that tiny transistor radio buzzed to life on October 18, 1954, the world didn't realize what had just begun. In that simple moment, the turning of a dial, the hum of static, the burst of melody, humanity took its first step toward the portable future. That hum never really stopped. It just evolved, from transistors to chips, from signals to streams. And as we look back on that day, we can almost hear it. The faint echo of history's first portable heartbeat, whispering from a little plastic box that changed everything. Number 9. The Jungle Book, 1967. The Disney magic that redefined animation. October 18, 1967. The world steps into a lush, hand-painted jungle where animals dance, sing, and teach us about the bare necessities of life. But behind this cheerful world of music and color lies a story of heartbreak, innovation, and the final creative touch of a legend, Walt Disney himself. This is the story of The Jungle Book, a film born from grief, rebuilt through hope, and destined to become one of the most beloved animated classics in history. A world without its creator. By the mid-1960s, the Walt Disney Studios was at a crossroads. Walt Disney, the man whose imagination had redefined entertainment, was aging, and his studio was struggling with a question that haunted creative empires everywhere. What happens after the visionary is gone? Just a year before the release of The Jungle Book, Walt passed away. On December 15, 1966. He never lived to see the film's premiere. But in many ways, The Jungle Book became his final goodbye, a reflection of his storytelling philosophy, his optimism, and his uncanny understanding of human emotion. It wasn't just another animated movie, it was a turning point. The film that saved Disney animation from collapse and reignited a legacy that continues to this day. From darkness to joy, the contradiction that defined it. Ironically, The Jungle Book began as one of the darkest projects in Disney history. When the film was first proposed in 1964, Walt's team was adapting Rudyard Kipling's 1894 novel, a grim and mysterious tale about survival, identity, and the wildness of nature. The initial drafts were true to Kipling's tone, shadowy, serious, and emotionally heavy. Walt hated it. In a story meeting, he reportedly said, "We're not making a literary film. We're making a Disney film." That single line changed everything. He threw out the early script, reassigned the project to new writers, and told his animators to forget the novel. and focus instead on fun, heart, and music. Thus began the rebirth of the Jungle Book. The team that made the Magic Walt brought in Larry Clemens to rework the story, a man who had previously written gags for Goofy's shorts. Clemens gave the story humor, warmth, and rhythm. He simplified Mowgli's journey from being found in the jungle to his reluctant return to the man village, and filled it with quirky, unforgettable animal companions. Then came the music. Walt dismissed the original somber score and hired the Sherman Brothers, the musical geniuses behind Mary Poppins and It's a Small World. But Walt wanted one more spark, something that truly captured the carefree spirit of the jungle. That spark came from Terry Gilkyson, who wrote The Bare Necessities. Its jazzy, laid-back melody perfectly embodied Baloo's philosophy. Live simply, be happy, and enjoy life. Even though Gilkyson's darker songs were scrapped, Walt kept The Bare Necessities because, in his words, it just felt right, bringing characters to life, animation as personality. Each animal in the Jungle Book was more than just ink and color. They were living personalities. Baloo, the lovable bear voiced by Phil Harris, wasn't just a character, he was a symbol of freedom. His easygoing manner, jazz-inspired dialogue, and unshakable optimism made him the heart of the movie. Bagheera, voiced by Sebastian Cabot, became the responsible father figure, a panther of principle, always torn between love and duty. Shere Khan, the elegant yet terrifying tiger voiced by George Sanders, brought sophistication to villainy, calm, calculated, and commanding. And of course, King Louie, the orangutan who wants to be like you, captured the spirit of curiosity and ambition, a funhouse mirror of human desire. Disney animators gave each animal human characteristics, anthropomorphism, but balanced it so perfectly that they still felt like wild creatures. That delicate blend became a hallmark of Disney storytelling. Hand-drawn dreams in a modern world. Here's the irony. In today's world of 3D animation and AI-generated visuals, the Jungle Book stands as a handcrafted masterpiece. Every leaf, every shadow, every bounce in Baloo's dance was drawn by hand. No shortcuts, no computers. Just pencils, paper, and passion. It took hundreds of artists and over 1 million individual drawings to bring the jungle to life. Each scene was layered with celluloid sheets, cells, painted on one by one, photographed frame by frame. Think about that. In an age before digital tools, animators were literally painting motion. The result? A film that doesn't just move, it breathes. The jungle feels alive. The sunlight filters through leaves. You can almost feel the humidity, hear the insects, sense the pulse of nature. That's the magic of craftsmanship, something no algorithm can replicate. Finding home beyond the songs, colors, and jokes, the Jungle Book has something deeper, a timeless, emotional thread. At its heart, it's a story about belonging. Mowgli, the man-cub, is caught between two worlds, the jungle that raised him and the human village that calls him back. Each character he meets represents a different philosophy of life. Baloo says, "Stay free, stay wild." Bagheera says, "Grow up, take responsibility." Shere Khan says, "Fear what you don't understand." By the film's end, Mowgli chooses to leave the jungle, not out of fear, but out of growth. It's a coming-of-age story wrapped in animal fur and jazz music. That emotional honesty is why the film still resonates. It's not about talking animals. It's about the human journey. The last Disney classic of an era. When The Jungle Book premiered on October 18, 1967, it became an instant hit. Critics praised its charm, parents loved its humor, and children couldn't stop singing the songs. But more than that, it proved something vital. Disney animation could survive without Walt. His final project became the foundation for the studio's future. It kept the animation department alive during a financially uncertain time and inspired a new generation of animators, the ones who would later create The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and The Lion King. Even decades later, the film's legacy continues. From the 2016 live-action remake to Broadway adaptations, The Jungle Book remains a cornerstone of global pop culture. And it all started with one man's refusal to make a dark story darker, when imagination was manual. Today, animation studios rely on terabytes of digital data. Characters are modeled, rigged, and textured with mathematical precision. But in 1967, animation was soul work. The imperfections made it beautiful. The slight flicker in a frame, the uneven paint stroke on a vine. They remind us that human hands made this magic. It is that tangible warmth, that handmade wonder, that keeps the Jungle Book timeless. And perhaps that's what Walt Disney intended all along, to leave behind not just a story, but a feeling, the bare necessities of legacy. When the credits rolled on October 18, 1967, audiences didn't know they had just witnessed the closing chapter of Walt Disney's personal legacy. The Jungle Book wasn't just entertainment. It was a love letter from the man who taught the world to dream. In Baloo's carefree rhythm and Mowgli's brave heart, Walt's spirit lived on. He may have left the world, but his imagination didn't. And every time we hum the bare necessities, we're not just singing a song. We're echoing the philosophy of a man who believed in joy, curiosity, and the endless adventure of storytelling. Number 10. The first spark of workers' rights, the Boston Shoemakers of 1648. It's 1648. The American colonies are still raw, fragile, and unshaped. 13 territories clinging to survival along the rugged Atlantic coast. In the midst of this primitive new world, something extraordinary happens. Not on a battlefield, not in a church, but in a small workshop in Boston. The sound of hammering grows louder, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. This was where the world's first recorded American labor organization was born, a group of shoemakers who dared to challenge the old order and stand together for their craft, their livelihood, and their dignity. The humble beginnings, a colony built on hands. In the mid-17th century, life in the Massachusetts Bay Colony was no fairy tale. Boston, just a tiny settlement at the time, was built on manual labor: carpenters, smiths, bakers, and most importantly, shoemakers. Shoes weren't just accessories, they were survival tools, made to endure harsh winters, muddy roads, and daily toil. Every pair was hand-stitched, shaped, and fitted by a craftsman who worked sunup to sundown. But despite their essential role, shoemakers were undervalued. They faced long hours, inconsistent pay, and fluctuating prices for materials. Every shoemaker was on his own, haggling for fair prices in a market that cared more about profit than craftsmanship. That's when the idea took root, an idea that would echo for centuries. What if workers stood together instead of struggling alone? The meeting that changed everything. Historical records from 1648 describe a gathering of Boston's shoemakers, men who had had enough of being exploited by merchants and middlemen. They formed what was called a company of shoemakers, not a company in the corporate sense, but a guild-like association modeled after the craft unions of Europe. Their purpose was simple yet revolutionary: to regulate quality of their trade, to set fair prices for work and materials, to train apprentices properly, and above all, to protect their members' livelihoods, in an age where individualism dominated colonial life. This was a bold act of unity. They petitioned the local government, the General Court of Massachusetts, for official recognition, and in an unprecedented move, they were granted a charter. This wasn't just paperwork. It was history's first recorded moment of organized labor rights in America. A world before rights. To understand how radical this was, you need to picture the world of 1648. There were no labor laws, no minimum wage, no unions, no weekends. If your boss decided not to pay you fairly, you had no recourse. If you were injured at work, there was no compensation. And if you protested, you risked imprisonment, or worse, exile. In this harsh reality, the Boston Shoemakers Guild was like a spark in the dark, a declaration that workers were not disposable. They believed craftsmanship had value, and that value deserved respect. That belief, humble as it was, laid the moral foundation for every labor movement that followed. The Shoemakers' Charter, a blueprint for fairness. Their petition to the Massachusetts General Court was visionary for its time. It outlined rules for honest trade, fair pricing, and mutual protection. It wasn't about rebellion. It was about responsibility, ensuring their craft maintained integrity while workers maintained dignity. The document even outlined disciplinary measures for dishonest work, a sign that they valued accountability as much as equality. When the court approved their request, it validated the principle that workers could and should have a say in their profession. This small victory, almost forgotten in dusty archives, became the first step toward organized labor law in America. The ripples of resistance. Of course, not everyone was thrilled. Merchants and elite landowners saw these associations as dangerous, a challenge to free trade. Some accused the shoemakers of forming a monopoly, restricting competition. But the truth was, they weren't chasing power. They were chasing fairness. The tension between labor and capital, between those who work and those who profit, started right there, in that Boston workshop. A quiet echo of a battle that would shape centuries of industry, protest, and progress. The human story, hands that built a legacy. Imagine one of those shoemakers, sleeves rolled up, hands rough and scarred from years of stitching and shaping leather. He wasn't thinking about history books. He was thinking about his family, his apprentices, and the value of his craft. He knew that alone his voice was weak. But together, the shoemakers could set a standard. That human instinct, to protect one another, to demand fairness, became the cornerstone of modern labor consciousness. Centuries later, when steelworkers struck in Pittsburgh, when coal miners marched in West Virginia, when teachers organized for fair wages, they were carrying forward the spirit of those Boston cobblers. The spark that began in 1648 still burns in every workers' protest banner, every collective contract, every union handshake. From guilds to gig economy, fast forward to today. The world of work has transformed beyond recognition, yet the same battle endures. The Boston Shoemakers fought for fair pay and safe conditions. Today's workers fight for the same, just in different forms. Freelancers seeking protection, delivery riders demanding fair algorithms, digital creators pushing for transparency. Technology changes, the tools change, but the human need for fairness, that never does. When you scroll through job listings or negotiate your salary, you're standing on centuries of struggle, starting with a handful of shoemakers who refused to be silent. A forgotten milestone in American identity. Here's the irony. While the Boston Tea Party, Paul Revere, and the Revolution dominate textbooks, the story of the Boston Shoemakers of 1648 rarely gets mentioned. Yet without them, there might never have been the foundation for the American labor movement, the AFL, or even the 8-hour workday. This small guild didn't just protect shoemakers. It helped define the American ideal of self-determination through unity. They showed that democracy wasn't just for politics, it belonged in the workplace too. The sound of the first hammer strike narrator, reflective, cinematic. So when we look back on October 18, 1648, we don't just see cobblers at work. We see pioneers, men who understood that fairness isn't granted, it's forged. One strike of the hammer, one stitch of leather, one act of courage at a time. The Boston Shoemakers may have worked with their hands, but what they built was far greater. The moral foundation for the labor rights we enjoy today. Their tools were simple, their dream was profound, and their story, like the sturdy shoes they made, was built to last. The day that shaped stories, skies, and dreams. And there you have it, a single day, October 18th, echoing across centuries. From the frozen frontiers of Alaska, to the boundless leap of Bob Beamon, to a curious little cat who touched the stars, and even the transistor radio that brought the world's music to our pockets. Each story, different in time and tone, shares one truth. Human curiosity never rests. We build, we explore, we dare, and sometimes we sing with a bear named Baloo about the bare necessities. So the next time your phone pings with a random "on this day in history" fact, don't just scroll past it. Stop for a moment, because behind every date, there's a leap, a melody, a spark, or a meow that changed the world just a little. If you enjoyed this journey through time, Hit that like button. It really helps more curious minds find us. Tell us in the comments, which October 18th moment fascinated you most? Was it the fearless Félicette, the visionary inventors of Texas Instruments, or the magic of the Jungle Book that still warms hearts today? And hey, if you love diving into stories where history meets wonder, subscribe and turn on the bell, because next week we're uncovering another day that rewrote the human story. One invention, one dream, and one wild idea at a time. Until then, keep your curiosity alive, because the past isn't gone. It's just waiting to be rediscovered.